Hello, all Garland Nixon here, and I know a lot of people have been talking about this whole DEI thing lately. They've been talking about the latest Jaguar advertisement and all kinds of stuff. So I figured time for me to weigh in. Let's talk. Hello, one and all, Garland Nixon here. And wow, not a lot of people watching today, and that's cool. I guess people are doing their holiday thing. People are squaring up for the holidays. Maybe people haven't even heard that I'm doing a live stream, been off for a day or two. But so I am actually in Virginia. Try working with microphone here. As you can see, I'm in strange and odd circumstances. I am in Virginia Beach for until Sunday. But as always, I'm always on YouTube and I'm looking all over the place and I'm seeing what the latest discussion is. And of course, I gotta weigh in, right? And this particular issue, the woke stuff, the isms, the DEI, these are the terms that are being bantered about, shall we say, fairly recklessly, as far as I'm concerned. For this reason, as you all know, when you if you've been listening to me for a while, in studying Zen, one of the a big part of the discussion is this. A big part of the philosophical thought process is this: how do you distinguish between the words and the symbols, the sounds and symbols, whether it's words or letters, writing, that you use to describe reality and reality, right? What do you mean when you say something? What do you mean when you write something? What are you referring to, right? You know what I'm saying? Because here's what happens: we say things but we never stop to think what we mean. And when we say a word and another person says a word, we mean, or a term or a phrase or a sound, or we write something, what we mean and what somebody else means is two total different things, right? And so one of the things I try to do, as I've said in the past, one of the things I recall was being involved for the state of Maryland when I worked with the Attorney General's office, was writing not laws, but writing regulations, right? And at the beginning of any regulation, you have to have like a glossary of terms, of definitions. When I was writing terms for, excuse me, regulations, helping to write regulations for the Department of Natural Resources, right? DNR, different, all kind of different regulations, but for DNR. And let's say it has a, a, um, a regulation about where you can have hoop nets on the Sassafras River, below this line and that line, above that line, maybe in a certain depth of water. They've got all kinds of regulations, right? But at the beginning, you have to define a hoop net. So if I'm going to say you can't have this type of um, commercial fishing gear, commercial harvesting gear, I have to define what I mean by that. And I think where we start here is when you talk about diversity and inclusion and DEI and wokeism and all of those things, right? What nobody does is define the terms. They mean, so it becomes Alice in Wonderland, right? I mean, my words mean exactly what I say they mean, nothing more, right? Well, yeah, but in a broad philosophical and discussion of critical thinking, that doesn't work. So let's talk about the when we talk about the whole issue of woke, DEI, all that kind of stuff. What is the first thing that pissed a lot of people off before we get in depth into it? It was the issue of cancel culture, right? What does that mean? In reality, let's sum it down to this: punishment. You should be canceled. What they meant was punished you, right? Canceling is, I'm going to do a couple of things. Let's say I throw you off Twitter and I say you can't work in Hollywood anymore and people won't listen to your music anymore and all those things. You got a couple of things going on there, right? Number one, you have a punishment. This person has been punished. This person feels the pain, but a big part of punishment also is this, to send the message to other people that if you are involved in similar transgressions, then you will also feel the pain also, right? So there's a deterrent effect, a chilling effect. I want to say, if you do what this person did, you're going to suffer. So all who watch will say, oh my gosh, I don't want to suffer the same fate as Garland here. So I'm not going to use the N word, because then all these terrible things will happen to me, right? That's part of the whole thing. I'm not judging that. I'm saying that's what it is. That's cancel culture. It's punishment. I'm going to punish you. I'm going to deter you from doing whatever it is, and I'm going to deter anyone else from doing whatever it is. But oftentimes, what was it that the person did? It's not defined how that's good or bad, because to define how it's good or bad is critical thinking. If somebody says something, if they use a particular word or a phrase, or they question something, right? And the person says, well, I don't know about, let's say, trans women or something, and sports. They want to talk about that. So a person who is a man who has now gone through whatever trans, I guess that means transformation. Okay, whatever. And now this person has declared that they're a man. And someone wants to have a discussion. Should I have to accept it? If you say you're a fill in the blank, do I have to say also, since you say you're this, do I have to accept it? And is there a limit for that? If you can say you're a different gender, can you say you're something else? Right. So it is an intellectual and philosophical discussion that some people want to have about what the terms mean and what my required participation in a society is. What do I have to do? And what happens if I don't want to do it? Okay. So that's a big part of it. But in my opinion, the cancel culture was about something really nefarious. And that would be this: stopping critical thinking, right? Because there was, to me, when you talk about these kinds of discussions, right? What do I have to do? Is it right or wrong? Is it good or bad? What happens if I disagree? What happens if I oppose that, right? What you get is the issue of critical thinking, right? Which means all those questions are legitimate. Critical thinking means all of these questions are legitimate, as long as they're not generated through malice, right? If it's just, hey, I want to talk, I want to question things, okay, then it is okay, as long as they're not malicious questions. It's not, as long as you're saying these people are bad, good. I just want to know what's required of me. I just have some questions. Why do I have to do this? Why should I have to do this? What if I don't want to do that, right? Okay, that's critical thinking. But what is the other side? Once you say, if I question it, and it's something Dr. Jim Kavanaugh and I were talking about the other day. Once you say, if you question what we've come up with that you have to do, that you have to accept, right? If you question it, you're bad, you're evil, and you have to be punished. You're now talking about conformity, right? I would say an ideological, social conformity, whatever the case may be, conformity. We have decided certain things. And who's the we? It would be the ruling elite, right? It would be the Hollywood elite. It would be the Tony Blinkens and the political elite, right? We have decided that there's a certain way of thinking, a way of living, a way of acting, that there's cultural changes that we want. That's what we've decided. And that is an ideological / cultural decision that we, the ruling elite, the people in power, have made. And you're not allowed to question that. You must conform to what we say, the way of thinking that we've come up with, right? And there are those of us who say, well, wait a minute, we're into critical thinking. When you come up with something, whether it was COVID, hey, you got to stand 6 feet across, 6 feet apart. The critical thinkers say, I'm willing to do that, but I would like to know where the evidence comes from. Otherwise, maybe there's something different that we can do that help, or maybe that won't help at all. But we want to see the evidence of that critical thinking, right? We want the evidence. We want the details. Release the scientific evidence you have to show us that that's necessary, right? Critical thinking, intellectual, philosophical discussion. What we're talking about is ideological conformity. You're punished for attempting critical thinking. Critical thinking, think of this: critical thinking versus ideological conformity. Questioning In fact, they even went through so far as to when people they said, okay, you have to do this, and it was a government policy, and people said, well, okay, what's the science behind the government policy? They said, you're questioning the science. Well, there were many of us who said, no, it's the opposite. We want to know what the science is. We want to see the science. No, you're questioning the science. What you were really questioning was ideological conformity. You have to, when you're told something by your betters, by the ruling elite, by the people who have designated themselves as the vanguard of cultural changes, when you question something that they say or they do, you're wrong. That's critical thinking, questioning and asking for more and wanting to have a discussion and wanting to have input. When someone says you have to do this, okay, I want to question, and I want to then say, but if I have to do this, what about that? Well, would this be a better option? How does that help? Now you're saying not only do I want to question these things, I want input. This is all relative to this whole woke thing, the DEI thing, the isms, racism, transphobe. Now you got to add the transphobes, words, isms, and phobes, right? Things like that. And that is people who say, look, such as me, I believe that all humans should have the same expectation of rights. Now, even a bit, there's probably people who are call themselves open-minded who don't. Oh, well, we've got American exceptionalism. Well, that now you've already said that we are an exception to the rule, and we do not have to go by the same rules as everyone else, that we're somehow above them, somehow different. That's not the same expectation of rights. American exceptionalism says Americans have a higher expectation of rights than other people. We're the exception to the rule. Everybody has to do it except us. Everybody has to think a certain way except us. Now, that whole exceptionalism is coming home to bite us in the butt because we've got a ruling elite that are saying American exceptionalism, now ruling elitist exceptionalism. See, remember, when you talk about this whole thing of who decides what's good and bad and right and wrong in the culture, right? It gets into this. Does the culture change over the course of time as a result of people coming to cultural conclusions, advancing, um, society's improving or changing, questions being now people like us say the way a culture changes, the way a country changes, the way a society changes is through questioning it, right? We're doing this. Hey, is slavery right? Or is it right that this group can't vote or women can't vote or this group is that right? We question those things and we say it's not right and people protest and all kinds of things have to happen in a society that are organic that changes these kinds of things that may not be right. But there is a dialogue of critical thinking and then there are those who will push back and say no, we've got ideological conformity. This is the way we've always been doing it and we should always do it this way. Now, you got to throw this in. There is a place in a society for what we will call traditions. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater and say we shouldn't have any traditions whatsoever. We should just instantly abandon all traditions because it then comes back to the question, who decides that? Does Hollywood decide it? Do the people in New York and London and Berlin decide it? Do the people who at the State Department decide it, right? The people out here say, if it's an organic process, that means we decide it all together um, in a natural way, that the culture changes, that somebody stands up and says, well, we have a particular way of viewing or seeing things in the culture. And then that manifests itself into a broader conversation, not saying that that always works in a perfect manner. And there are protests and there are fights. And sometimes there are people who blow things up. They're so mad. But even then, I'm opposed to all violence. But even then, not all violence, to be honest, people have a right to defend themselves. But I'm saying, even then, you can argue that that's organic change. It's not a bunch of ruling elite bastards telling us what to do. Now, that being said, let's go get into this. Let's get into this thing. One of the things that I put in my thumbnail is the issue of feminized men and masculine women, right? That's part of this State Department pushed, intelligence agency pushed, Hollywood elite pushed. Oh, but I repeat myself, cultural change that they're working for, right? This ideological cultural change, right? And that is this. I mean, it's quite simple. All you have to do is look. what do you see in movies? You see what movies do you see? Okay, Disney, whatever. They're all like this. A strong woman. I mean, movie after movie, you see every movie you see. Yeah, don't even go to Netflix or Disney Plus or Paramount, right? Every one of them is going to have a group of diverse, strong, diverse women. See, the thing about always being strong, diverse women, and the women there don't have a feminine side to them. They're superheroes. They're bashing things up. They're strong. They're leaders. They're all this kind of stuff, right? But they don't have a feminine side to them. Is the masculinization of women, right? The destruction of gender archetypes or stereotypes or whatever you want to say, right? Of gender, traditional gender types, right? It is wrong to cast women in a feminine light, right? Men are then feminized. The woman is the superhero. All these superhero, they called it, what is it, the MCU for Marvel Comics universe? Because why? They even took movies, and what they would do in the movies is they would take all of the men and like put them in an alternate universe, and they would be replaced by a group of diverse women. Everything was, we must masculinize the women. It's wrong and it's evil to have feminized women. And when it came to men, what do you see? Look at, have you seen the Jaguar advertisement? Right now, I don't have all my, I've got a second screen, and also it's really hard for me to play the extra stuff, but I would play it. But I would recommend that everybody watch this Jaguar advertisement. And that is, what do you notice about it? And this is a bunch of, it looks like a Benetton advertisement. It looks more like a Benetton or Calvin Klein. If it was a Calvin Klein advertisement, I wouldn't be as critical of it, right? But this advertisement has a bunch of people, all who are feminized. There's not a masculine person in the bunch, right? And they have one very feminine colors and very feminine outfits, and all extremely, the males are all exceptionally effeminate, not a masculine bone in the body of anyone there, right? No masculine intent, all feminized, right? And some men have skirts on or skin tight clothes, and they get off of some elevator on a moonscape or something, and they wander out, they sit on a rock, and they all turn their heads. Now, here's what's something interesting in that. They all do the same thing. They'll turn their heads this way. They turn their heads that way. And then they all get up and they all walk alike. And in a way, if you think about it, it is the opposite of diversity. If you watch that new Jaguar advertisement, why? All the people are dressed exactly alike in that they have the same type of outfit on. I'm sure it was the same designer they used. They're bright colors. They're all similar outfits. There's old saying, I want to be different like everyone else, right? What does that mean? They all have this effeminate look and makeup on. They all have these Hollywood, London type effeminate hairdos and everything. Everything about it is effeminate, is effeminate. Somebody put sherbet colors. Exactly. Right. And so when you look at this, if it was diversity, it would be something different. You know what diversity is? Having one guy in a camouflage hat and some chewing tobacco, and have another person in the bright colored pink dresses, and in another, you know what I'm saying, and another guy in a button-down collar shirt that looks like just another yuppie. That is ideological. That is economic diversity, diversity of thought. One guy has on a MAGA hat and the other one has on some Kamala Harris hat, right? Or whatever. Political diversity. The only kind of diversity that we get is the color of the person's skin and the gender diversity. Not a diversity of thought, never diversity of economic class, never a diversity of culture. It's not a diversity of culture. Yeah, there's black people, there's white people, stuff like that, but they're all of the same culture. Let's call it the woke culture, for lack of a better term. I don't like the term. I wish I had a better term, but forget it. We'll use it that, right? Diversity means a group of things that are somewhat diverse, somewhat different. But if I look at people, what is different about those people? They all have the same look on their face, bland, blank, emotionless. They're like hood ornaments. I've looked at it, and the first thing I saw when I saw like a black guy in the middle, and the first thing out of my mind was, man, they're turning black folks into hood ornaments now. That's what you got. A black person's a hood ornament. They could have had a black person speaking. Nope. They're like this. And they all at the same time. They all turn their heads. They all show conformity. That what is being painted as diversity is the ultimate in conformity. How ironic is that? That conformity is now pushed forward as diversity. What's diverse? If there's a certain racism to looking at that, seeing a bunch of people that are kind of from a perspective of femininity, they're all the same. Their build, they're mostly all skinny. I think they got one heavy set lady in there, but they're all the same. The look on their face is the same. Right? What is diverse about that crowd? The only thing diverse about them is maybe their heights are different and the color of some of their skin is different. Which tells me the only thing you see as diversity is the difference in skin color. That whoever put that ad together said we can put people of different skin colors together, skin hues, right? They're all going to be effeminate. They're all going to be mostly the same build, skinny, no musculature to any of them. They're all gonna have a bland, blank look on their face. They're gonna turn their head the same way. They're gonna walk exactly alike in the same way, like a bunch of little chess men. And then we're gonna say there's something diverse about that because their skin colors are different. That ain't diversity. That you know what it is? Here's the other part about this. To use the term diversity, you got to understand that there are various forms of diversity. For instance, I could put 5 white guys together and you could say there's no diversity. And I could say that one's has 2 kids. They're both daughters. That one has 1 kid who's a son. That one has no kids. That one, and I go on, and it could be 5 white guys. They could be the same age, height, weight, and everything. And I could simply say they're diverse. It is diverse. I can pick things about them. That one has 4 sisters. That one has no sisters, no brothers. That one is an only child. That one has 12. Okay, I could use any manner of terms to define that as a diverse crew. So to say that a bunch of people together are diverse doesn't tell me anything. You have to define the diversity. What do you mean? If I'm bringing if I'm coming up with, to me, diversity of thought is the most important thing. What happens if I bring 4 black guys together and they're all conservative Trump supporters? What happens if I bring 4 black guys together? One of them's a Trump supporter and he's a conservative. Another one is a diehard member of the American Communist Party. Another one is a libertarian, and another one is completely apolitical. I have a very diverse group, don't I? I have a very, very diverse group of people. If you look at them, there's 5 black guys. I could have them all the same skin tone, same height, same weight, same outfit, everything about them. And you look at them and say there's no diversity there if you judge them by skin color and height and weight and gender. No, but if you judge them by diversity of thought, I've got an extreme more diverse than anything you will ever see in Hollywood. If you put these so-called diversity groups together and you say, what do you think of Trump? Look, Trump, we hate Trump, he's terrible. There is no diversity of thought. So the way we're being played by the ruling elite is we're being told that there's only one form of diversity, that they decide what that form of diversity is, and that form of diversity is only color of skin. What does that ultimately mean? That the only thing you're judging me by is the color of my skin. That if you put me in an advertisement and some black guy and Clarence Thomas, me and Clarence Thomas, I'm a lefty, he's a conservative. He's got a right to believe the way he wants. But if you put us together, you now have you don't have any diversity. Why? Because there's 2 black guys together. So that's no diversity. It's absurd. It's preposterous. That's why I start from the beginning. When you say diversity, how do you define diversity? And to me, what you have is this. You've got the white liberal class and the what I would call the privileged black liberal class, right? The white liberal class and the wannabe black liberals and Latino and all the other wannabe liberals, saying that the liberal class are the ones who have a right to define diversity. They're the ones that can tell us what is diversity. And if you ask them, okay, what is diversity? It's only by color of skin and gender. And we'll also work on that gender thing because that's kind of hairy, right? And you have what's a natural pushback. And the pushback, I think, from a lot of people is not, I hate black people or white people or blah, blah, blah. It's, wait a minute. Who the hell does the ruling elite think they are to tell me how to judge diversity and what's good and bad and right and wrong? And that they're going to punish me anytime I don't do what the hell they want me to do. Now, let me add this. Another big part of the DEI thing is the do-gooders part of it, right? And that is, hold on one second. That is, it is implied by the liberal class that, quote, DEI is good for the minority people, for whatever group, the black and the Asian and you name it, whatever group that they put. When you see your chewing gum advertisement and there's a black guy and a white guy and a gay couple and an Asian person and all that, that somehow, because they have all these people in here, they're being good. They're the good guys. And that it's somehow supposed to be in the best interest of each of those groups. That somehow, when the Asian people look and see an Asian guy in a chewing gum commercial, and the black people see a black guy, and the gay people see a gay person, and all these people see all of their whatever member of their group in a chewing gum commercial, that it's supposed to help that group. But how the hell does it help them? Symbolically, hey, guess what? Poor black person. Yeah, you got to symbolically got some friggin' guy in a chewing gum commercial. That when Rachel Zegler or whoever the woman is that does Snow White, who's already rich, and when you give her a rich person, okay, she's now going to be in another movie and she's going to get richer. That somehow that helps women or whatever minority group she belongs to, that somehow she's the one getting the money. It ain't helping the rest of them. Symbolically speaking, it helps them in symbolism only. See, that's the main thing. That's what you get from the ruling elite. That's what you get from the rich liberal class. That's what you get from the government elites. You get symbolism because all the money is going to the military industrial complex. The money's going to Wall Street. The money's going to big tech. It ain't going to you. You know what? Who ain't getting symbolism? Goldman Sachs. They're getting a bailout. You know who ain't getting symbolism? Boeing. They're getting a contract for another $100 billion to build another plane that doesn't work. Lockheed Martin. So you get symbolism and they get cold, hard cash. Let me add this. I remember, I never forget this. While back, the NAACP, right, which is old, so-called Black Advancement, the National, so to tell you how old it is and how out of touch, the National Associate for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. I think that name needs to be changed. But at any rate, okay, fair enough. Who cares? We know what they mean. The name ain't important, it's what they do. Let's talk about one of the things that they do. I remember reading a while back, and this is part of the whole DEI thing. This was before that those terms were used, right? And it was, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to fight for more black people in the boardrooms of Fortune 500 companies, right? We need more black folks in the center of, whatever, what is it, a city group and, whatever, Milwaukee Tools and these gigantic corporations, American Airlines. We need black men and women on the boards. Well, let's start here. How does that help the poor black dude in East Baltimore who's struggling, right? How does that help him? Symbolically speaking, if you are eligible to be on the board of directors for American Airlines or Boeing, you're already rich. You're already well educated. You got a job from you got a degree from some vine-covered university. You ain't hurting. It's making the rich. Oops. You know what it is? It's the rich get richer. Okay, so it is. I'm going to help black folks. Yes. Oh, well, Greg, helping black folks. Everybody wants to do that. Black folks have been left behind and screwed by racism and apartheid and slavery. Let's help these black folks. How are we going to help the black folks? Piece of cake. We're going to find the richest bastard that we can have and make him richer. We're going to take this powerful rich bastard and make him more powerful and more really. Because I've always said this. Look. If you're talking about, there is a reality in America, and that was there was slavery, and there was apartheid, and there was segregated schooling and lots of things that left a large group of very poor black folks very poor, left them there. And then they moved into the cities. A lot of the cities from the South, that was called the Great Migration, they moved into a lot of cities and things didn't get no better. And then a lot of times they would elect people that they thought might help them, Democrats that were black. Did those people looked out for themselves? And now a lot of black people in urban areas are waking up and saying, wait a minute, we've been voting for you sons of guns since the 60s, since we came here from the South, and nothing's improved. Nobody's trying to fix things. You're not fighting for us. You're just trying to, if you're the mayor of Baltimore or whatever, you're trying to become, I'm not just picking out the mayor of Baltimore, I'm saying of city, you're trying to get more power and you're trying to move up and you're trying to feather your nest and move up the Democratic Party. And then maybe you can run for senator and then maybe you're looking out for number one. And the poor black folks in East Baltimore or Cherry Hill or wherever they're struggling, nobody's saying, rather than trying to help the black person in the boardroom move into the boardroom, rather than help the black person in a movie who's already a millionaire get more millions of dollars, I got an idea. How about we go to the poorest neighborhood and give them some, improve their school, put some money in their schools, put some money in recreation so kids don't have to hang on the street, put some money in, come to Garland Nixon. How you going to help the poor black folks in America? Fair enough. Let's do, if there's issues with addiction, we'll have more beds and more places for people who are right to improve the quality of lives of the least amongst us, the poorest amongst us. If I'm going to help white people in America, you know where I'm going to go to? I'm going to go to poor white folks in Mississippi. I'm going to go to poor white folks in Appalachia, parts of East, again, parts of East, South Baltimore, poor white folks. I'm going to go to the poorest amongst us. How does it help poor white people if I say, I know what, this white guy who's already got a multi-million dollar a mansion in Beverly Hills, I'm going to give this white guy another part in a Disney movie and pay him more millions. Does that help poor white folks? Does that help poor folks, period? So the part of the whole fraud of DEI is it's symbolic help for groups. If you identify a group, let me give you an example. What about Native Americans? They've been screwed. It is hard not to argue that Native Americans ain't been screwed, right? And they're left on these prison camps that we call reservations, very underfunded. Some of these reservations, 30% of the people there don't have water, some higher. So you got people that don't have running water and electricity. But yet we got money for $500 million B-2 bombers that the only thing they'd be good for is after everybody else died in the nuclear war to fly in and try to, if there was anybody alive, to finish off the last few humans. Oh boy, we need to spend $500 million to do that. What happens if you took that and you go into the poorest of the poor neighborhoods, that same, but how much could you do? Joe Biden in 2020 said, free community college. And I said, there's something that will be like people talk about reparations, whatever. That's something that would help poor black folks. Give them education. Go say, you know what? Go into the poorest black communities, the poorest white communities, right? And build community colleges, turn some of the high schools into community colleges and give free community college to poor folks. What about that? That's something, not, oh, we're going to put them on a latest Disney movie. We're going to have the 7 dwarves and everyone's going to be a different gender and going to be a different race. And then, and yeah, that's going to be our plan to help poor folks. Each of the races or genders that has their member represented in the latest 7 Dwarfs movie, somehow that helps them. Hell no. Help the poor folks. But see, here's the thing about it. They don't want to help poor folks. They don't want to help poor white folks. They don't want to help poor black folks. They don't want to have to help poor Native American folks. They don't want to help poor folks. As soon as I start that talk about helping the poor folks, I'm going to get canceled. I'm going to get thrown off Twitter and Rumble, Stumble, Bumble, I got to go off everything because now I'm talking about economic diversity. I'm talking about if you want to have a conversation, which the liberals don't want to have this conversation, but if they wanted to have a conversation about people that have been economically left behind, I'm going to say Native Americans, hard to argue. What do we need to do? Education. How about running freaking water on their reservations for a start, and electricity and stuff like that? I think that would be fair. And perhaps maybe we cut out a couple of those $500 million bombers, and we could use that money to give them all water and electricity and high-speed internet and things that people are supposed to have in an industrialized society that Native Americans don't get. Could we start there? Nope, nope. You know what they're going to do? They've got, look this up. This is their plan. They've got a one of these superhero movies out. That's what Native Americans get. And they've got a new superhero, and her name is Echo, Echo. And why Echo? Well, she is a superhero. Number one, she's Native American. Oh boy! But although the Native American people won't be able to watch it because they don't have any electricity. Okay, but if they had electricity and high-speed internet, they'd be able to watch Echo. And boy, would they feel good, right? Now, let me add this. She's Native American. She's deaf, so she's handicapped. And she's got one friggin' leg cut off. I mean, at the knee. So she's running around here with I don't know if they gave her a bionic leg or something, whatever the hell, right? But I think she's deaf, she's Native American, of course, a woman, so they put all this stuff together in their virtue signaling, and they say, look at us in Hollywood, look how good we're doing. She checks off all the boxes. And yeah, she checked off all the boxes, but she didn't do a damn thing for Native American people. She didn't do a damn thing for handicapped people. She did a damn thing for anybody. And she didn't even do anything for Hollywood because nobody goes to see the damn movie. So you're virtue signaling, and back in the day, everybody knows this. We called it posing. She's a poser. You're nothing but a poser. Remember that? Yeah, they're posing. Hey, look at this. We got a person who's a fill in the blank. It does nothing to help them. So my point on this whole thing is, ultimately what we have is just a bunch of posing, just a bunch of pretending to be good, just the argument that the ruling elite have the right, dare I say the duty, to tell us what's good and what's bad, to do cancel culture, which means to punish us. That's what, think of that. They're mad because they're not in charge of Twitter, or they're not in charge of all the social media platforms. Because what is that? The woke culture, the woke people want to be in charge. The neoliberals want to be in charge of all social media. Why is it so important? So they can control the narrative. And so they can tell us what's good and bad, and they can punish those who attempt critical thinking, as opposed to um identity, cultural and ideological conformity. You want to talk about it? No, do what the hell you're told. Listen to your betters. Listen to your betters. And people that are saying, no, I refuse to listen to you bastards, number one. And number two, you ain't my betters. It's just, I'll tell you one thing's weird, and that is I'm in a spot where the sun is doing weird stuff, but who cares? Maybe you guys will keep watching. From the looks of things, pretty soon I'm going to be like unwatchable because I'm just going to be a giant glare, which is good. Maybe it'll somehow enhance my looks. Can't hurt, right? But anyway, let me continue. So there's a couple of things I want to hit, and I want to make sure that I've hit all of them before I disappear into the glare of the sun. So at any rate, I think a big part, one of the things people talk about, I hear people talk about DEI stuff, and they say, that's why Trump won, right? Because people are sick of DEI. I do think that it's not that simple, okay? But I do think there is some credibility to have that discussion, right? That people are not tired of, quote, diversity. People are not tired of um, cultural changes. What people are sick of is not being given the opportunity to discuss these things. If things in our culture are changing, if things are going to be different, we may want some, as the masses want some input in it. And if Hollywood's going to do a different type of movie, you know what? Sometimes we vote with our feet. For instance, I love sci-fi, but I love and superhero and sci-fi and aliens and all that kind of stuff. Oh, I love that stuff. But when every freaking movie I turn on is, hey, what's the latest superhero movie? A diverse group of female. Oh, not again. Because what do I know? I know because this is the masculinization of women. That in this movie, women are going to be strong and they're going to be tough and they're going to be masculine and they're not going to really show any their feminine side at all. And there'll be a bunch of guys who will be usually in these kind of movies, they're either like gay or gender non something or other, or they're just nondescript characters. They're just part of the plot. They're just somebody there in the way to give the women somebody to beat the hell out of and kick in the groin or to outthink and demonstrate how stupid they are, right? And then when guys get pissed and say, "Hey, you're making us look like idiots." Oh my gosh, you perverts, you deviants, you scumbags. And dare I say this, I gotta say something that is talked about in the Black community. It is talked about in the Black community. So what the hell? I mean, talk about anything. You know me, I don't give a crap. Except that I'm starting to disappear into a friggin' sunbeam for some God knows why reason. All right. And I've heard Black men say this. This is not, this is, look, amongst Black males, this is talked about. And again, a lot of Black males didn't vote or voted for Trump and wouldn't vote for Kamala, right? And it is this. They talk about the feminization of the Black man. And they're like, look, why is it? It seems like when I turn on Hollywood, turn on whatever, what are those shows that where they have the singers, you know what I mean? Where America's Got Talent kind of, right? And they have a singer and there's a Black guy and he's always the gayest of the gay. And it's like, I got nothing against gay people, nothing against Black gay men. But for God's sake, every now and then, couldn't you have like an Idris Elba kind of guy? You know what I mean? Like Jaguar, right? I'm looking at Jaguar and I'm like, now that dude, that if there was ever an advertisement for Idris Elba, it's Jaguar. That dude is like the manliest guy that you could find. He's tall, he's in shape, good looking, wears a suit, he's got on the dark, put up the dark. If I'm a Jag guy and they're like, hey, we gotta have a Jaguar commercial, I'm like, great. And we want a Black guy, Idris Elba. He's got a British accent for God's sake. There's a dude, man, who amongst us of any race or gender would look at a Jaguar commercial with Idris Elba and say, oh, there's something wrong with that. No, he's rich. People with a lot of money buy Jaguars. And if he wasn't rich, he looks rich. So here you got this tall, cool, good looking guy in a black suit with sunglasses on and a shiny Jag driving through the streets of whatever. The door opens, Idris Elba gets out. He's got a hot babe beside him, and he just walks away into I'm like, hey, I'm not even a Jaguar guy, but I might have to buy one. I want to look like Idris Elba. Who the hell doesn't, right? But no, we got a bunch of guys who look like refugees from Gumby or, Teletubbies or something, for God's sake, wandering around there. And I'm like, if I had a Jaguar, I'd burn it. If I had a Jaguar, I'd like, oh, crap. I mean, if you're a single guy now driving a Jaguar, dude, you ain't getting a date unless it's with another guy. Maybe that's what you want. None of my business. I don't care. But if you're a dude now and you think you're cool and you're like, I'm a cool brother right now, man, check me out. What kind of car you got? And you're looking at the Jaguar, you're gonna be like, it's a Mazda. Whatever the hell. I'd rather drive a 1984 a Toyota pickup with a little four-cylinder engine. Pretty good vehicles. They last forever. They kind of rusted out, but it was a hell of a drivetrain in that truck. But here's my point. It wasn't a Jaguar, and I'd rather drive one than a Jaguar because they have been like now put forward as the representative of all things feminized. In a nutshell, that's what it was. They're rebranding, right? Jaguar's rebranding this commercial. If you haven't seen it, you got to. And the rebranding is the feminization of Jaguar. And when I saw they had some guy from marketing on, right? You can go online and find this. And the guy was talking about Jaguar, and he was a very gay guy. He was extremely gay person. Look, I could care less. But just because I have this discussion doesn't make me anti-gay. Just because I talk about black folks don't mean I hate black. I can have the conversation. It's called critical thinking. It's called a philosophical and intellectual discussion. And if I say this person is gay and therefore blah, 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 and make certain discussions and points and assumptions, that now I'm anti-gay. Why? Oh, maybe over here. There we go. Now we're getting cooking with gas. Why? Because, again, to attack me for the things I'm saying and call them anti-gay is for this reason. It's to shut down the discussion, because what I'm doing is pushing back against ideological conformity. I'm saying, let's have the discussion. If you think the Jaguar commercial was wonderful, it's hard to argue it wasn't extremely feminine. It was the feminization of the brand. That's all it was. That's why a lot of people don't even recognize that. And that's why they're having this discussion about Jaguar, right? Well, I don't feel, oh, I'm manly. It's not manly or whatever. It's the feminization of the brand. Let's feminize a Jaguar. Yeah, but that ain't, I mean, I'll put it like this. From the perspective of the traditional customer base of Jaguar, that ain't appealing to them. And are you trying to sell Jaguars? Or are you trying to make some kind of a cultural point to say, everyone, we're going along, we're part of this ideological conformity. Why aren't you? What's wrong with you? You're not conforming. Moving in the light so I can see my damn self. You're not conforming with the ideology that the state and the ruling elite have decided that you should conform to. And that in and of itself, here's the thing. We're getting to a point where I've said this you've heard this but I will be honest, I got to give credit. I got it from Congressman John Conyers used to say this. And who, Paul Robeson Jr. used to say it too. So for every revolution, there's a counter revolution, right? Abraham Lincoln used to say that, and he's written that a president can't get but so far ahead of the American people, where they are culturally, politically, economically, culturally, politically, things of that nature, right? You can't get too far ahead of the people. And so what is that saying? That's saying there are, what the hell's going on here? This is tough. That there are traditions. This is to say that there are things that have been certain ways, right? Some good, some not good, some bad. And that if it's bad, if it's not good for certain groups of people and you need to change it, there's a way about changing it. But just having the ruling elite punish people for having the discussion about it. The way to change things, what's the saying? You've heard this saying. The cure for bad speech is more speech. If somebody's saying something that's not right or bad, you should have a discussion. If somebody said, well, Garland, I got a problem. I don't like black people at all. I would say, you need to come on my channel. We need to have a discussion. I don't give a shit. You're going to say things I don't like. Here's why. Lay it on. Let's have a discussion. I want people to hear that. I don't like anybody but, I don't know, short people with red hair. Let's have that discussion. Not, oh, no, you didn't. You must be canceled. You got to be thrown off Twitter. You got to be thrown off YouTube. You got to be demonetized. Thrown off Facebook, Rumble, Stumble, Bumble, everything else. You must be punished. It is punishing people without a trial. What is a trial about, right? A trial is about the opportunity for everyone, for both the defense and the prosecution, the plaintiff and the defendant, be it a civil trial, whatever you want to put it, to put their arguments forward, to put their evidence forward, and to have a decision made. And I've said this oftentimes. You got a jury of 12 people. You got one side hears only the prosecution. One side hears only the defense. One side hears both the prosecution and the defense. You divide into three groups of four, right? Okay, the last group hears both. Which group is better able to make a decision when it comes to the outcome of the trial? Of course, obviously, the group that have heard both sides, that have heard both the prosecution and the defense, or the plaintiff and the defendant, whatever the case may be in a civil trial. That makes sense. But what we're being told by the ruling elite, by the liberal class, by the ruling elite in the government is that we're only allowed to hear one side. And that is what? That's ideological conformity. That's cultural conformity. That's political conformity. Don't listen to the other side, whatever you do. And if you know me, if you watch my channel, I'll have a guy who's a diehard conservative, diehard libertarian, diehard communist. I don't give a crap what you are. And all three of them, I'll listen to them. And you know what I'll say? Yeah, those are some damn good points. But I don't have to say that because when you hear it, you can decide if they're good points. You can listen. I've had people on that people have said, contacted me and said, Garland, I've never heard that person before. My God, I really enjoy it. I've never heard that side of the argument before. That's an interesting side of the argument. I like that. I want to hear that person again, right? Why? This is about critical thinking. This is about not automatically saying that particular ideology, that particular group, that particular thought process is off limits. You can't even listen to it. I tell you this much. Whenever somebody tells me, whatever you do, don't listen to that, I want to hear it. Oh, really? Yeah, especially the ruling elite. Hey, don't listen to that guy over there. Oh, really, ruling elite? You don't want me to listen to him? No. Okay, thanks a lot. Have a nice day. What are you going to do? I'm going to go listen to that guy because I wonder why don't want me to listen. And afterwards, I can decide why it was. Well, I see now why they didn't want me to listen. Or I can say that was a good idea. I mean, you were right. The person's a total scumbag, but now I don't want to take your word for it. If you tell me, Garland, don't listen to that guy, he's a racist, sexist, homophobe, scumbag, blah, 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 blah. I say, oh, really? Yeah. Let me check it out. And then I can listen to him and I can say, well, he's a racist and a homophobe, but he's not a whatever, transphobe. I don't know what the hell. I can't keep up with any of those, right? None of them make any sense to me anyway. But my point is this, is something different. You, the ruling elite, the government, the Hollywood elites, whoever that's making the movies and the music and all that, tell me, don't listen to that person, that group, that entity, whatever, that ideology because it's bad. I want to know for myself. And when I'm done with it, I can agree with you or I can disagree or I can say they have some good points and some bad points. I don't have to take your word for it. And ideological conformity is about taking their word for it. And most likely, the people that are in the chat right now, the people that we're talking with, the people that we are uh, uh, um, having these types of conversations in and around on the new media, which is, this time, this is the new media platforms. The people who are migrating to the new media platforms are the people who are saying, I don't want to take the word of the traditional people who pointed us in the various directions of thinking directions. And because on this new media platforms, you're finding out just how much you were lied to in the past and just how much you're being lied to now and how they're exposing us to danger. You're like, so let me see if I can understand this COVID thing right. The people who said that they were looking out for our welfare when it came to COVID. Why do we have to get locked down? Because we want you to be safe. Why don't I have to wear masks? Because we want you to be safe and healthy. Well, why do we have to get the jab? Because we want you to be safe and healthy. So your answer is you did everything that you did out of concern for our safety. Yeah. How you feel about nuclear war? Well, we might just have to do nuclear war. I mean, you never know. I mean, if we'd far rather have all humans die from a nuclear blast than have the Russians have full control of the Donbass. And I'm supposed to believe that you were the one who was looking out for my best interest. The same person that when I say we've got people in our society who don't have a roof over their head, who work every day, who have jobs and they're living in their cars or they're living in a tent because they can't afford it. Can't we do something to help those people? Children who have excellent grades, who could be brilliant scientists and teachers and all kinds of things and improve our society, but they can't go to college because they can't afford it, or they're concerned that they'll be in debt for their entire life. Perhaps as a society, we should have a discussion about the betterment of society by having more people who are better educated. Can we have that discussion? Nope. But I thought you were about looking out for my society. No, we've got to build more B-1 bombers and we've got to upgrade our nuclear arsenal. Isn't that the nuclear arsenal that'll be used to kill all humans? Right. So we got no money to help kids go to school, to help hardworking people put a roof over their head, to help people who are mentally ill wandering the street talking to themselves, who are freezing to death on the street because they're homeless. We can't help them. People who have addictions, who want out of the addictions but have no way out. Can we have money for to help people who have it? No, 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 no. But we got money for nukes, and you want to go start a pick a fight with Russia on their border and possibly get us killed. And next you want China, and you got these lunatics in Zionists who are threatening to use the Samson option. We're supposed to believe that you're looking out for us because you want us to stand 6 feet apart. Yeah, well, I kind of find it hard to grasp that. Maybe that's why so many people don't trust you, because they look, you can't just say, I'm looking out for your best interest and not expect us to look at all the things you do. That creates a context for whether or not we believe you're looking out for our best interest. Okay, so we look at it and we say, we don't necessarily believe A, that you're looking out for our best interest. Number two, we believe in critical thinking, so we should be able to evaluate all of the evidence and data we have to determine whether we do believe that you're looking out for our best interest. And the evidence points to a reality that you ain't. Get out of our faces. Shove off. Move on. We ain't trying to hear it. Okay. Um, and I think that's where we are. I think that's where we are. And let me add one other thing. And I think it's important to finish off with this. The people um, who claim to be doing this, whatever you want to talk, uh, diversity and inclusion, and putting a bunch of different people of different colors and races on every freaking chewing gum advertisement because they're going to help the minorities. In reality, I believe that what they're doing hurts the groups that they're claiming to help far. It doesn't help them at all. First of all, screw you with your symbolic help. If I'm hungry and I don't have a roof over my head, I don't need symbolism. I need a friggin' a bowl of rice and something on the rice, some vegetables and whatever I can get to eat. If I'm hungry, I need nutrition. I don't need symbolism. I don't need to say, hey, guess what? They've got a new superhero that looks and sounds just like me. Although I'm not sure what gender the person is, and neither are they. Yay. No, that ain't gonna put food in my mouth. That ain't gonna put a roof over my head. That's not gonna shield me from the elements. That's what I need. So ultimately, to me, what the ruling elite are doing is, in lieu of doing something that will help people who need help, they're given a symbolism. And the truth about what's the term I want to use? Cancel culture is this. It's trying to shut the mouths of those who would expose the futility of this symbolism, the irony of this of claiming that you're trying to help some minority groups or whatever symbolically, when in fact what you're only doing is pissing people off. You're in Hollywood right now. You're a white guy. You better pretty much forget it. I don't have you been paying attention to Hollywood lately? I look at it and I'm like, I remember when Hollywood was lily white. It was wasp all the way down. You turn on Hollywood and it was Leave It to Beaver or whatever. It was all the same thing. Remember the nuclear family? I think Joe Biden has a different idea of the nuclear family, for God's sake. But so what you have? You had a white guy and a white woman, and they were both around 40, and they had a bunch of little kids, and the white guy came home and he smoked a pipe and he made the decisions for the whole family. And the name of the song, the name of the some of these things I saw reruns, but and the name of the show was like Father Knows Best. Okay. That's what you had. So you went from that, from a bunch of white people, and there was no black. Mayberry RFD, right? And stuff like that, where you had like a town in North Carolina and there was no black people. I don't know how much you know about North Carolina. Ain't a whole lot of towns like that, but that was Hollywood, right? So Hollywood went from, all right, America is all white, Christian, wasps, Protestant, everything, right? Okay. Two, now none of those people could get a job. If you're a white male, if you're the greatest actor in the world, if you're a beautiful, gorgeous, hot chick, you get a job. They want some person with like weird hair, who's gender non-conforming, who if he's black, you're a black guy who's straight, you're probably going to struggle getting a job, probably want you to be gay or something like that. They want people who are going to fit into their culture attempt at feudal attempts at cultural change. That ain't fair. That ain't what I want. I didn't want to watch TV shows where everyone's a lily white waspy person, and if you're a great black actor or female actor or Asian or whatever, you ain't getting a job. It's not happening. Hollywood was lily white. I didn't think that was fair. And I don't think it's fair if a white guy's the greatest actor in the world or a white woman and they can't get a job because they've got to have every advertisement has got to have, sorry, basically the quota. What's happening? Well, we've got an advertisement for 4 people and we already got the white guy. So sorry, we got to get a black guy, an Asian person, and I think we're going to go with a Muslim and gay, right? Hey, wait a minute. Sorry, bad news. We need a gay person. Well, we got a black guy, but it ain't gay. Well, replace him with a black gay guy. Okay, there you go. We got them all. How about non-gender conforming? I don't know. Okay, one of you other people going to have to get fired. There's no longer a discussion about the acting capabilities of the people in the movie, and that really starts to show if you're looking at the movies. It's fairly obvious, and I have a funny feeling that this whole thing is spread out into the rest of the countries. For instance, companies in Hollywood, for instance, they have companies that create CGI, right? Have you looked at the quality of the CGI in Hollywood in these movies? It is pathetic. I could go to like one of these websites where you write a text of what video you want and it creates like a whale with a cowboy riding on his back or something, right? I could do better with that than that CGI crap we got in Hollywood now. I have a feeling it's the same thing, that they're not like, "Hey, let's get the best graphics artists that we can get." I get a feeling that it's like, "Oh, how we fix on graphic artists?" Well, we got a white guy. We need an Asian person. We need somebody that's overweight. We need some diverse females. And so they bring in people as graphic artists for this CGI company with no thought about who's the best graphic artist. It's like, what? Let's walk over and look at the workroom for our graphics department. And they look across the workroom and they're like, "Oh, that's beautiful. We've got a Native American person over there. Got an Asian, a black guy. What about that white guy? Is he gender non-conforming? Yeah, we found him now. He doesn't know anything about graphics. He's never touched a computer in his life. Oh, really? You think he can learn? Nah, he's blind. That's why we chose him, because he's blind. Great. A blind graphic artist. Nobody's ever seen that before. And he's never seen anything because he's blind. So he can't do the job. But I have a feeling that they're going to hire him anyway. And we're going to look at his work and say, the graphics in this movie is so bad, it looks like it was done by a blind person. And they're going to be like, "Funny you should mention that. It was done by a blind person." You're going to be like, "And I'm not going to see the movie." "Oh, so you're a sexist, racist, blindophobe, huh?" No, I just think that CGI done by a blind person probably could be done better. That's all I'm saying. But could we get somebody that can see? Maybe give the guy a job doing something else. I don't want the guy to be hurt. I mean, nothing but love for this guy. I'm just saying, a service dog's not going to help you when you're doing CGI. What's he gonna do? Pick out the covers? Bark when you're supposed to click? Not a good idea, guys. Not a good idea. That's the Hollywood we're looking at now. That's why I think everything in Hollywood is so bad, because we see the movie, we see the vanguard of this woke DEI thing in Hollywood, which is a friggin' chewing gum commercial that looks like a Benetton ad. That's what the end result that we see. But behind that is where they're like, "Yes, we've got what have you looked at our writing staff? Because you got to look at them in order to be proper." No, I haven't. Let's take a look. And they go look at the room where all the writers are, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, look at that. We've got African people." But they don't speak English. Who cares? At least they're African. Let them write something. Well, we can't read any of the jokes they're writing because they're in an obscure Zulu tribe that only 12 people in history have ever spoken. Not important. The important thing is that they're on the staff, and you can look at the staff and see them. Okay, what else? We got an Inuit Eskimos. We got a guy from Siberia, and oh no, that's Russia. Can't have that, right? And that's about it. Some guy from Israel. He only speaks Hebrew. Look, that's it. That's what you're looking at from top to bottom in Hollywood. And you can't fix that because they've already top to bottom in Hollywood, the companies, the companies that support the support companies, all of them are playing the same game, and that is, we don't care if you're good, we don't care if you're bad, we don't care if we know you know what you're doing. We're going to look, and we're going to say the picture. I'll say this, true story. I once applied for a grant for this project that I was working on, and after but it was and I wasn't chosen, and when I looked at it, I realized why. It was the most absurd group I've ever seen in my life. The people that they picked to do stuff, it was preposterous. Not saying I should have been picked or shouldn't have been picked, but it was preposterous. But I realized when I saw all said and done, it was that Jaguar advertisement, that they didn't look at people that could do the most effective things for the grant. None of that. That they looked at it and they said, we need a gay person, a black person, a white person, a this and that. They wanted a Benetton ad. They wanted a picture. When they put together the group of people at the end that they chose for grants, the issue was not what they were doing. It was they wanted a good picture. It was the neoliberalism. We want to put a picture in the newspaper, and people are going to look at it, and they're going to have an Asian person, a black person, a white person, a female, a gay person, a this and that. And there we go. We got our diversity inclusionary crowd. And now, for me, there are people who will get mad at me for even having this conversation. You know what? I really don't give a shit because this is what I do. Let me add one other thing, and I'll finish last. I will finish. I will finish with this. You can't have this discussion without talking about the issue of immigration. Here's why. Let's take, without even going here, let's go to Europe. I make the argument that Europe is suffering from decades of colonialism, imperialism, the ruling elite for years. What would the ruling elite of France or do or the UK? They'd go to whatever, some African country. They would massacre people. They would force them into involuntary servitude, and they would steal all of their cobalt and their diamonds and their gold and all the stuff they had, and they would kill lots of them and do terrible things. And the money would come back to the ruling elite. The working class people got to go into the Navy and the military so they could go over and fight and die for the ruling elite, so they could steal shit from all over the world. But a lot of these countries, what they did, they became, the people in these countries, because it was a colony, became citizens of the crown so they could come back. They could go back to England, they could go back to Germany, they could go back to France. And so what do you got? You got a Germany and a France, full of people from the former colonies. What you're seeing now is they're upset because you got one of two things. You got loads of people from the former colonies coming in saying, we're poor and broke in our former colonies, so we're coming back here, number one. Number two, you've got these bastards that are going out and starting wars, and they're like, hey, what are you doing? Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to country X. We're going to overthrow the government, install some puppet so we can steal all the oil. And now you got refugees, and they show up in your place. Back we go. Think about it. Isn't it interesting that Russia and China isn't having this problem? Russia and China ain't having this problem at all, are they? Nope. For some reason, they never ran around the world and created a bunch of colonies and stole everybody's stuff. And nobody's coming back home to where their stuff was taken after it was stolen. No, there are no citizens of the crown returning. In fact, if you look at Russia, it's already pretty damn diverse. I mean, they got, what, we ain't going to get into that. But my point being this. So when some people in Europe say, you know, we're French, and as French people, we like lots of fruit for breakfast and baguettes and shit like that. Wine and baguettes, that's what we're eating. And berets. Fair enough. You're French. That's the kind of thing you ought to have on a friggin' beret, and you ought to eat a baguette and slurp on some wine. Good work. You're a friggin' Frenchman, right? That's how I know you're a Frenchman. And you got French music and French art and French stuff. Great for France. Love it. Wonderful. What a beautiful history. If it wasn't for all of the imperialism and colonialism of stealing people's stuff, I'd love you. But I got some issues with that. But that's the ruling elite. That's the ruling elite doing those things around the world. So I'm blaming the average French guy who just wants to eat his stinking baguette and have a slurp of wine with some fruit. But now a Frenchman wakes up and he wants his French culture, and he looks, and because of the ruling elite, France is loaded with people from Africa and from the Middle East, and God only knows what probably some from the South Pacific, from New Caledonia, whatever, French colonies all over the world, and from countries that have been devastated by the ruling elites, imperialist wars, and globalist wars and theft. All these people end up in France. Now, here's the question. When a Frenchman says, I don't like that, and you say, why? And he's like, because these people don't eat baguettes and sip wine. They eat hummus and sip tea or something, whatever, right? I'd rather keep France. I'd rather keep our culture. The neoliberal that says that guy's a racist bastard. And the guy says, man, my country's going to hell. Why? Because there ain't no Frenchmen anymore. I look around and all we got is, and here's the thing. So the people coming over, they're Muslim or they're African, whatever, it's changing. But they're poor. They don't have much. They came to this country with nothing and they're trying to make it. And so you've imported a lot of people who are very poor. You've imported a lot of people who have different cultures, different religions, all that kind of stuff. And because there's so many of them, it's starting to what's the word? Drown out the traditional French culture. And then some French people say, I kind of like my baguettes and grapes and wine. So come on, man. I'm not happy with this. Well, they're a racist scumbag. They're a racist pig because they say, France ain't what it used to be. Why? Because, well, there used to be French people here, and now there's everything else. Does that mean that they just hate all people of color or Muslim or different? No. And then when some of them say, well, these people are coming here and they're not changing into the French culture. How about that? Go figure that. Okay. What they're really saying is, I feel that my culture is dying. And I don't want my culture to die. I'm proud of my culture. I enjoy my culture. And I don't want my culture to die. Is that inherently racist? Now, I'm not saying that Europe doesn't have racist people that just hate anybody of color for any reason. Certainly, there's racist people in this country. In Europe, there's racist people everywhere. But my point is, just because a person says, I have a culture in this community, in this city, in this country, in this whatever, I like that culture. I'm proud of that culture. It's an old culture. A lot of new people are moving in and the culture's changing and I'm not happy with it. Just because they say that doesn't mean they're some kind of an evil racist person. Again, what did I say at the beginning? This is a discussion that should be had, that people should then say, what are you upset about? Is it that you hate the black people that are in your what you call it now? No. Now, there may be some animosity towards those people. Why? Because they're the visual representation, right? You look at them, they symbolize. You can see them and they visualize the threats to a culture that you're happy with. Now, they're the symbol of it. They're the visual uh, 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 visualization of it, right? But the ruling elite did this. The ruling elite caused this. Because the ruling elite don't give a crap about your culture, no other culture. All the ruling elite want is control and more money for them. And might I add this? Let me give you an example right here in the United States. Oh, what's the term when neighborhoods change, when you have a traditional black neighborhood and like a lot of white people start moving in and it starts to change, right? And there's black folks that'll complain about that, say, man, this was a neighborhood and it was a black neighborhood, and now it's all changing and it's blah blah blah. And it'll be the same thing. And you know what I say to them? I understand how you feel. This was a community and it was a neighborhood and it was a traditional black neighborhood. Now all these yuppies are in here jogging around, walking their friggin' terrier every day, and you feel like the neighborhood's changing and I'm not saying that's evil and bad. I'm saying that's kind of natural. People kind of like things the way they are. I'm not saying the people don't have a right to move in there. And then the price of housing goes up and they refurb all of these houses. And now the people that have been living there, the taxes go up and they can't afford to. And they complain because new people are moving in and things are changing. Does that make them evil or racist? And if I can look at the black people in that community and say, You got old people who've been living in that community, and because the value of the houses are going in with all these new people in these refurbished houses, and older people there can't afford to pay the taxes anymore because the property values are going up and they have to sell to move out, and more yuppies move in, and blah, blah, blah. If I say, you're not evil, you just don't like the change that's happening, and let's have a discussion about that. Sure. But then I can't say that the friggin' baguette eating, beret wearing French guy in Paris who has kind of the same complaint is evil. I can say, I can kind of see where he would feel that way. I can say the guy that just jumps up and screams, I hate Muslims and N words. They're inferior to my group. I can have a problem with that because now it goes against a fundamental human um, concept that I believe that is critical, and that is that all human beings should have the same expectation of rights. And now you're having exceptionalism. This group is better than that group. This group has a greater expectation of rights. Now you're getting into a place where I think that society should um, say no. Everybody has the same expectation of rights, but I do think it's now the French person, if they knew, or the person in England who says, "Hey, we kind of like our crappy food and stinky weather, and we don't want everything changing." I think that it's time for that person to be introduced to a conversation about whose fault it is that these things are changing, so that they can say, "You know, I realize something. It is the foreign policy of the ruling elite that's bringing about these changes and concerns that I have. So I'm not going to support them anymore. And furthermore, I'm going to vote for someone, support someone, or run myself to change these things." I think that that's important. So the foundation of this discussion is critical thinking versus ideological conformity. And if you're in this chat and you're part of this discussion, then the issue of critical thinking, I think you're already there. You may not be perfect, and none of us are. We all got a long way to go, but that's all we're trying to do in that's all we're trying to do is critical thinking. All we're trying to do is throw things. I look at the chat sometime and read why. Because you guys are part of the show. And it's not a show, the discussion, right? Some people say, well, when you're doing a show, don't look at the chat. Not me. I look at the chat every now and then because it keeps things dynamic. I don't always say, I'm looking at the chat, but I'll talk for a while and I'll look at the chat. And oftentimes I will comment on something in the chat because that creates a certain level of dynamism to the show. Is that the right word? Dynamism, right? Dynamite, right? What it does, in the words of Jimmy Walker, it allows the people in the chat to drive the conversation. We have a context for the discussion, but I think it's important that the context is shared, and the discussion and the input is shared by all, and it makes it better. And I think that's why people like my shows. As I said, I don't always scream, "Hey, Studio Boha said, yes, it's dynamic, meaning it's powerful." I don't always scream that, but I'm always doing it. And I think more hosts should do it. In fact, if I had like a person who was working with me or for me or something like that, could afford those kind of things, I would have a person who would just like keep putting up every now and then, who would scan and just keep putting things up on the chat so that they could be part of the conversation. But maybe I'll start doing that myself. Just every now and then I'll click on one of the things I'm looking at. So as I said, I've got to thank everybody for taking time out and watching this thing, especially with God only knows. Look at this mess. I mean, there's like sun here. It looks like I'm about to get, fried by some kind of a solar flare. Glad that ain't happening. But what I'd like you to do is share this on all your social media platforms. Very few people. Well, only 274. Usually we have a lot more. But here in the US, we got holidays, so there's a lot of people who are traveling, getting ready for Thanksgiving. Oh, we got a lot to talk about that. Let's hope that we don't all get nuked and we'll all look just like that fried turkey for Thanksgiving, right? I am a positive person, and I don't think we're gonna get nuked, and I think we're gonna be okay. But um uh Number one, make sure everybody click on subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Click on like if you haven't liked it. Also, make sure, you know, what 269 people, that means 269 people on other platforms, X or whatever the case may be, should have shared this. Certainly appreciate that. We don't have money here for advertising. So instead, what we do is we all work together on social media to share the stuff that we like, not just mine. If you see a particular thing, whether it's the Duran or Brian Berletic or Danny Haifong or whoever the hell, right? Judge Napolitano, Dialogue Works, Neutrality Studies, all of them. I don't care which one it is. If you see one that you particularly like that stands out for you, share it so other people can do it. That's the only way we can get things done on social media, and we can make changes and address these issues. Number one. Number two, if you can afford it, Patreon, PayPal, buy me a coffee is great. Buy a garland of coffee. How much? $5. How many? 1, 2, 3, whatever. And buy me a coffee is just like Patreon now. If you choose it to be, you can do the monthly subscription. So anybody that can do that. Also, I've got a Substack. Make sure you go there. It would be great if you could become a member. I think it's only like $5 a month. So that would be great if you could go to my Substack and be a member. Right now, as you know, my radio station, the one that I did that was paid, has closed down. So this is all I'm doing. So anybody that can help the channel and keep this thing going, and hopefully we can expand it and do bigger and better things, is highly appreciated. Everyone, have a great day, and very interesting show with the sun in my friggin' eyes. Have a good day. Thanks. I'm out. Oh, somebody said Mahmoud OD. Yeah, Mahmoud OD. There's so many of them. Mahmoud OD is great. I love that guy. There's another one called Activist News Network. I could go on and on. You guys know what time it is, and we can thank the mainstream media, man. They're the ones who made. Look, we can thank Morning Joe. If it wasn't for Morning Joe, we wouldn't have we wouldn't be getting all this love. The crap that they're doing is taking us where we need to be. Peace. I'm out.